appears as violation of the rules of the previous pattern. Players, professional or amateur, that is very much important in this sense, whether you play the game as a professional one or as an amateur one. Of course, the situation differs in this sense. Judges, neutral or biased, because we just understand that if the judge is biased, then the results of the game may be also biased, right? And finally, spectators, whether you are a fan or an occasional visitor to the stadium, the above structure helps us to represent football, cricket, and bridge as a set of typical propositions to correspond functional aspect of their semantics. The approach applied makes it possible to advance a light pattern of the conceptual system of sports in the English-speaking world, like Britain and the United States. The next slide, please. Yes, in this research, we rely upon the prototype theory developed in Russia by Alexander Vladimirovich Bondarko and in America by William Croft, George Lakoff, Eleanor Roche, as well as the frame theory by Marvin Minsky. Thus, a prototype represents an etymon representative or an etymon option among the other ones, like players must observe their prototype of rules. Rules prototype disruption leads to break the border between the certain types of sports, like football in the United States and football in the United Kingdom, or rugby and rugby 7. Thus, a certain dynamic frame which the definite activities for players, judges, and spectators represents the scenario of the whole game. The next one, please. Oh, yes, and I've got some pictures to illustrate at the end of my presentation those games. Have a look at football in the United States, or soccer in the United Kingdom, soccer in the United States, which is different of the next one, please. Rugby. So rugby started at School of Rugby and that was back in the middle of the 19th century, when one of the players grabbed the ball and started to use the hands for dealing with the ball, because football, it's the etymology is absolutely clear. So you use your feet for the game. It's not like handball. And rugby got the name of the school where the first rugby game was started, and it appeared as a violation of football in Great Britain, and that rugby developed its own reality. Could we take the next one? Here we see rugby 7. Rugby 7, only 7 players on each part. They take part in the game, which is different because in standard rugby it's 15 against 15. Could you take to the next one? The next one shows us the picture of American football, which they call simply football. And you see the equipment of the players is absolutely different from what we're used to in football, and the rules are absolutely different, and they use not only feet but hands as well. And the goal is of the different size, and the playground is also differently presented and got ready for the game. Could we take the next one? The next one deals with cricket, a very good English game, loved by many Britons. And the next one is its violation and the rise of even maybe more popular game in the world called baseball, because just the popularity of baseball in the United States, the matches in baseball are shown in prime time in many American channels, TV channels. And if you take the newspaper, American newspaper, definitely they view the games of baseball, and even in different universities, the championships in baseball are top priority, and they gather many people at the stadium to support one of the players or one of the teams and the next one. Next one deals with bridge, just a very popular game in the world. And the next one would show us the contract bridge. I took all pictures from the Yandex source. And here we see that it, of course, got the news. And finally, the discussion to crown it all, that the approach to the game situation from the perspective of the conflict also gives us an opportunity to consider some examples of the violation of prototypical standards of these sports and the game as it is, as a stimulating factor of the development of each of the games we analyzed. It leads to the rise of non-typical patterns when the compromise pattern categorical concept plus non-typical attributes, new, that is, attributes, appears as a new prototype of a usual game situation frame, which can be singled out. Later, the new pattern transforms into a new game with its own prototype and rules. And the next one contains my thank you for the listeners. I greet you with November flowers, and hope everything will be okay. We're safe and sound, and thank you again for giving me the floor to voice the results of my investigation. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Miklukho. It was very profound research and substantial material to be presented.
Thank you.
I can hear the echo. Is it okay? So, dear colleagues, dear guests, do you have any questions to our presenter? Okay, so if you have any questions, please just use the chat, or you may also just pass me over the questions for our guest, for our colleague, to answer your questions, okay, in connection with his item. Thank you so much, Andrei Eduardovich, and please recover as soon as possible. And we're waiting for you just in our next conference in March, okay?
I hope I will. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And just, I'm ready to ask the next presenter to come here, Anastasia Arshak. How would it be comfortable for you just to present the item, a lexical approach implementation as a resolution of the academic vocabulary acquisition problem? So would it be comfortable for you to sit here? Yeah. Okay, so let me prepare a bit. And just in the co-authorship, just we have written a very interesting item for the research. And just now we'll be ready to present it. Just a second. How it will be more comfortable. The microphone is right here, so just it will be great if you can talk a bit louder, okay? So just let me help you to find your presentation. please.
Good morning, dear colleagues. I would like to present our research paper on the issue of academic vocabulary acquisition. So first and foremost, academic vocabulary, next slide please. Academic vocabulary is defined as a set of words shared across various scientific disciplines. In the study, academic vocabulary is considered in relation to English for specific purposes students. These students are specialists in scientific fields not related to linguistics, such as engineering, mathematics, physics, who learn English in order to apply it in their job or at an educational institution. Research has confirmed that academic vocabulary is indispensable to material comprehension and to eloquent writing. Essential as it is, academic vocabulary has also been proven to cause great difficulty to many English for specific purposes students who struggle to both memorize and implement academic vocabulary in their writing and speech. So, the necessity arises to determine what might be hindering the process of academic vocabulary acquisition, as well as to provide a solution to this problem. So, therefore, in order to gather information on the techniques that English for specific purposes students use in order to expand their academic vocabulary, survey was conducted. Please, next slide. Focus and next slide, the results. All the respondents are second-year students from Russia pursuing a bachelor's degree in economics, food, technology, or geology. The students' language courses cater for their professional needs, meaning that the materials studied in the language class are concerned related topics. So the survey results demonstrate that the majority of the participants have limited foreign language academic vocabulary, which limits their ability to express themselves clearly. This may be attributed to the fact that only 25% of them learn words in collocations or phrases. Moreover, please next slide. Moreover, 3/4 of the respondents spend most of the time in class reading or translating text. Literature analysis reveals that the learning strategies used by the respondents belong to the method known as the grammar translation 1, which is characterized by its focus on reading, grammar, and word list memorization. Please, next slide. Therefore, the participants' restricted vocabulary suggests that the grammar translation method may not be effective in academic vocabulary acquisition. Its ineffectiveness may be explained from the standpoint of the lexical approach. Please, next slide. Firstly, the purpose of the method does not correspond with the respondents' language objective. While the participants' goal is to master the productive skills, the purpose of the method is primarily the method focused primarily at facilitating comprehensive reading. The lexical approach, on the contrary, centers around developing students' ability to clearly express themselves. And secondly, word list learning is regarded as unproductive. Difficulty that the participants experience in conceptualizing in English may be due to the learning words out of context. According to Michael Lewis, it is impossible to produce clear and correct sentences unless there is an understanding of how a given word functions in the language, that is, its syntactic functions. In order to develop this understanding, students have to memorize words in chunks or phrases. In summary, the techniques applied in the lexical approach appear to serve the needs of English for specific purposes students far better than those of the grammar translation 1. Therefore, the implementation of the former is advised. The research results are, however, not conclusive, since the complexity of the subject explores offers prospects for further investigation. Further studies should primarily concern the experimental validation of the inferred lexical approach efficiency in academic vocabulary acquisition. That's all I wanted to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you so much for presenting your item and your research. Do we have any questions, dear colleagues?
I've got one. Please, could you specify what you mean by this lexical approach to communication? You said that students are supposed to memorize not lexical things, but more in chunks. What else do you imply by this method?
So the lexical approach treats lexis as the primary, as the primer aspect of the language. So the approach is based on the concept that we first learn words, because without learning words we can't produce any speech, and then we learn grammar in order to form sentences. And so we have to learn first lexis, and not only learn words but also learn them with prepositions, with adjectives, so that our speech sounds natural and then we can produce it easily.
Can you also describe how have you managed to conduct the questionnaire survey?
So I have conducted it among 24 students. They're all from the Russian Federation, and I just asked them to tell me a little bit about how they study English. So the English classes are related to their specialization, so they read text on the related to the course, related to the profession, and I just wanted to know how they do it.
Thank you so much. Do you have some other questions to our presenter? Thank you so much for your interesting research. I'm ready to introduce our next presenter. Please, Elena, if you are ready to present your topic connected with national specificity of judicial discourse as the key to the translation of terminology, right? Metaphors and cliches. How is it better for you to sit here?
Yeah, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. I don't mind. Please take a seat. And just let me help just a bit find you the presentations. Yeah, I know. Here you are. Here you are. Yeah, we have to share the screen. Okay, you are. We are ready to start. Okay.
So, dear colleagues, first of all, I would like to say thank you for the people who organized this wonderful conference, and I will seize the opportunity to speak Russian. Тема моей презентации – это национальная специфика судебного дискурса, а точнее терминологии, метафоры и клише, которые используются в заседаниях Верховных судов США и Канады. Цель моего исследования, здесь я только представляю часть тех результатов, которые я получила. Цель моего исследования в первую очередь определить, насколько отличается судебный дискурс в Америке и Канаде. Начнем мы с определения дискурса. Действительно, существует много трактовок, много подходов к определению этого термина, но мы остановимся на следующем. Это речевое взаимодействие, лингвистические особенности которого изучаются в совокупности с прагматическими, социокультурными, а также когнитивными особенностями. Надо сказать, что дискурс обязательно изучается в связи с тем контекстом, тем событийным контекстом, в котором он разворачивается. Соответственно, когда мы изучаем дискурс, мы отталкиваемся именно от той ситуации, да, где он происходит. Поэтому изучение именно заседаний Верховного суда является тем контекстом, который влияет на речь участников, судей и юристов. Попробуем дать определение судебному дискурсу как общему понятию. Это институциональное, профессиональное, строго регламентированное речевое взаимодействие судей и юристов в зале суда, направленное на решение профессиональных задач. Речевое взаимодействие участников судебного заседания характеризуется высокой степенью ритуальности, церемониальности, клишированностью, повторами, а также использованием определенной терминологии и особенностями метафоризации. Начнем с этикетных клише, которые используются в Верховных судах США и Канаде. На этом слайде вы видите, что в начале судебного заседания секретарь суда произносит короткую речь, цель которой является исключительно установить контакт и привлечь внимание участников к тому, что начинается судебное заседание. Устаревшие фразы, как вы видите, в начале «ое», «ое», «ое» — это старофранцузское выражение, чтобы привлекать внимание, и дальше идет фраза, которая больше напоминает, что молитва. Да, то есть такая вот церемония начала судебного заседания. Она всегда произносится, никогда судебное заседание не начинается без этой фразы, даже когда во время ковида Верховный суд США заседал онлайн, обязательно эта фраза произносилась, то есть без нее никак. И в конце судебного заседания уже председатель суда произносит клишированную фразу «The case is submitted, thank you, counsel». Что касается Канады, у них все более лаконично. В начале судебного заседания, опять же, секретарь суда произносит фразу «the court» or «la cour», соответственно, на французском, поскольку два официальных языка во Франции, а вот в конце судебного заседания там возможны вариации. Здесь я только указала самые частые, да, которые часто используются, а так, там, как в голову им придет закончить судебное заседание, так они его и заканчивают. Также к этикетным клише относятся формы обращения. Обращение в первую очередь к судьям. Я думаю, что все прекрасно знают американское обращение «Your Honor», «Ваша честь», которое используется в Верховном суде. В США, в Канаде оно не используется. Но при этом канадцы придерживаются традиции и используют британские варианты «Your Ladyship», «Your Lordship». А теперь несколько слов о терминологии. Терминология юридическая – это ключевая особенность любого судебного дискурса, либо вообще терминология – это особенность любого дискурса, да, профессионального. В принципе, терминология позволяет выделить дискурс соответственно, с той профессиональной сферы, где она используется. И при изучении именно терминов обычно применяется следующий подход. Да? Мы как бы отталкиваемся от того, что юридическая терминология в США и в Канаде схожа, поскольку она как бы произошла от единой британской, да, терминологии, и потом уже получила какое-то свое развитие. Соответственно, есть три категории терминов, которые мы группируем. Первая категория – это термины, которые схожи по форме, но имеют разницу либо различия в значении в семантике, термины, которые схожи по форме, которые, извините, отличаются по форме, но при этом схожи семантически, и национальные реалии. Реалии – это те термины, которые существуют только в одной судебной системе. На первом слайде вы видите термины, которые отличаются по форме, но имеют одинаковые значения. Да? Дальше здесь можете ознакомиться с терминами, которые схожи по форме, но отличают, имеют какие-то семы, да? Например, жирно выделены те семы, которые не совпадают. И национальные реалии. Это самое интересное, да, те понятия, которые существуют только в одной судебно-правовой системе. Ну, например, в Америке termination at will, то есть когда человека могут уволить в любой момент без предупреждения и без каких-либо выплат. Grand jury – это большая коллегия присяжных, которые решают, стоит ли передавать дело в суд. Например, вот сейчас Джулиани был подвержен этой процедуре. Хак Вайси, то есть вот такие интересные моменты. Partisan judges, да, мы все знаем, что в Верховном суде судьи назначаются исключительно из их партийной принадлежности. Вот в Канаде же это немножко другие реалии, да, Peace and Substance Doctrine, да, доктрина истинного смысла, Extra Provincial Corporation, корпорация – это юрлицо, которое как бы организована в одной провинции, да, но может осуществлять деятельность и попадать в юрисдикцию другой провинции. Registrar, да, как должностное лицо в суде, которое сочетает в себе и судебные, и административные функции. И последнее, предпоследнее, извините, особенности концептуализации термина constitution. На самом деле, если мы говорим про анализ дискурса, мы не можем остановиться только на формальных особенностях. Да? Дискурс, в первую очередь, изучает именно концептуальные особенности, которые существуют в определенном лингвокультурном сообществе. И вот на примере термина constitution мы проследили, как этот термин отличается, как он по-разному концептуализируется в канадском и в американском судебном дискурсе. Все мы знаем, что Конституция в США – это одна из самых древних конституций, да, в современном ее понимании. Это национальный, исконно национальный документ, который был разработан отцами-основателями, и, следовательно, да, он считается, ну, что-то сродни Библии. А в Канаде Конституция появилась исключительно благодаря Англии. То есть британский парламент даровал Канаде Конституцию. То есть Конституция, которая просуществовала до 1982 года прошлого столетия, являлась британским законом. Соответственно, канадцы немножко скептически к этому относятся, и они, после того, как они все-таки же получили право вносить, да, изменения в Конституцию, они приняли еще так называемую Хартию прав и свобод. И, соответственно, в суде они разделяют четко, да, что является конституционными правами, то есть английскими, и что является именно правами согласно этой хартии. Потому что, например, в Америке в Конституцию входит все, и Биль о правах, и поправки, и они это все вместе объединяют термин Конституция. В Канаде четкое разграничение, что у них Constitution, что у них Charter. И последнее, да, метафоры, особенности метафоризации, мы принимаем как такое широкое понимание термина метафора, это любой перенос значения на основании ассоциаций с одного понятия на другое. Не всегда эти понятия даже бывают смежными. И, соответственно, мы тоже проследили и выявили определенные отличия в метафоризации ключевых юридических понятий. Ну, например, да, так называемая экстерриториальная юрисдикция в США называется таким интересным термином long arm jurisdiction, да, длиннорукая юрисдикция, которая может достать обвиняемого из любого штата или даже из любого государства. В Канаде используется нейтральный термин, да, service ex juris. С другой стороны, Канада называет свою судебную систему, поскольку они до сих пор считают, что глава государства – это монарх Великобритании, они называют the king on the bench, ну, до сентября была у них the queen on the bench, а в США тоже нейтральный термин, обозначающий судебную систему. И вот такой тоже интересный оборот, метафорический, in the eye of law, то есть с точки зрения закона, в США они используют метафору, как да, вот, закон ассоциируется с таким человеком, который имеет глаза, рот, уши. Вот в Канаде более нейтральный вариант. Соответственно, в заключении хотелось бы сказать, что изучение дискурса, любого профессионального дискурса и судебного в том числе, может дать очень интересные данные, ну, результаты, да, соответственно, которые могут быть использованы как в теории перевода, как в природоведении, в практике, да, также, в принципе, и в каких-то лингвистических исследованиях. Спасибо за внимание.
Лена, огромное спасибо вам за столь интересную тему. Хотелось бы узнать у наших коллег вопросы.
Есть вопрос.
Да.
Есть ли у нас какие-нибудь похожие метафоры непосредственно в нашем суде, потому что я совершенно некомпетентен?
Насколько мне известно, вот, к сожалению, да, поскольку в нашей стране судебная система менялась, традиции ломались, не сохранились. У нас очень сухой, формальный язык. Вот метафор таких, красивых клише. И потому что я как бы глубоко изучала, у меня просто муж юрист, соответственно, как бы вот мы с ним часто обсуждаем эти вопросы, он говорит, ну у нас такого нет. Да, у нас есть там, например, какие-то обороты, как называемые канцеляризмы, такие сухие прям штампы, а вот именно красивых там вот, метафор, исторические какие-то термины. Такого, ну, я
А вот с точки зрения вашего мужа, это помогает судебному процессу или отягощает его вот, наличие такого художественного?
Так, он считает, что на самом деле, особенно что касается Америки, процесс судебного заседания, суда Верховного суда как главного органа, да, судебного в стране, это в первую очередь, конечно, такой более такая публичная речь, это мастерство в ораторском искусстве, ну, они пытаются проявить, да, вот навыки ораторского искусства, и, скорее всего, это, конечно, отвлекает. То есть, на самом деле, вот, популяризация судебного процесса, это делает, например, судебное заседание в Америке частью политики. Да, то есть прям вот они приравнивают. У нас, конечно, исключительно профессиональная сфера, да, и решаются чисто профессиональные вопросы. Вот так.
Елена, подскажите,
да.
В процессе нашего исследования были ли какие-то моменты, когда мы могли сказать, что есть какая-то региональная специфика, то есть вот в США и в Канаде?
Конечно, на самом деле, да, на самом деле, даже если я часто, когда анализирую Канаду, я часто вижу сходство с Британией. Но однозначно это два федеративных государства, Англия, Канада и США. Поэтому у них очень много общего, именно как североамериканский регион. Да,
внутри диалектный
знаете, какая ситуация? Мы говорим про Верховный суд, да, и, соответственно, он как бы вот нивелирует все различия, да, и даже, например, если из Квебека, да, придут юристы Верховный суд отстаивать свое дело, они чаще будут выбирать английский язык. Они не будут выбирать, например, вот французский, да, хотя, в принципе, у них есть право заслушивать дело либо на английском, либо на французском языке. Да, конечно, английский, потому что вот Верховный суд больше как национальный орган, там вот все диалекты, регионализм, они все, конечно, немножко стираются. И они все стараются как бы говорить как на национальной норме, да, английского языка, а не на региональном.
Спасибо огромное. Да, еще вопросы у нас есть? Да, все. Спасибо вам огромное. Интересное исследование, да. Thank you so much. So we are moving forward. Manubia Ben Yedachen. Just I can't see her from Tunisia. Can't see them. Okay, so Valeria, are you ready to present your item? So the Chinese language and its place in genetic and typological classification of languages. So Chinese. How will it be comfortable for you? Maybe here. Sit. Okay. Just let me open your presentation. Sit. I hope so. Okay. So, Valeria Vadimovna, okay, if you're ready to present your item.
Today I would like to talk to you about the Chinese language and its place in genetic and typological classification of languages. The main goal of my research is to determine the place modern Chinese language occupies in both genetic and typological classification of languages, and to survey what attributes of other languages, apart from isolating it, displays. The relevance of this article is in need to identify exact features of types of languages reflected in Chinese, to correctly exploit various structures when speaking the language or when translating. This article has practical value. It can be used by researchers, teachers, and students in the midst of practical course when studying Chinese as a foreign language or during translation course. Methods used in this article are content analysis, systematic approach, comparative and oppositional methods. Presently, the main means of communication between nations and among people is a language. However, this fact raises one question: what is a language? According to the Collins Dictionary, it is a communication system made up of a group of written and sound symbols that people of a region or country use for writing or talking. If we looked at the way we communicate, we would see that various languages are used in countries where it is not an official medium. Consequently, diverse types of language classifications emerged. In this article, we contemplate two types of classification, genetic and typological. The purpose of genetic classification is to group languages into families according to their degree of diachronic relatedness. Languages are assorted inside families consistent with their descent, are genetically related, and originate from the same ancestor. In accordance with this classification, Chinese is affiliated with the Semitic branch of Sino-Tibetan family. Typological classification groups languages into types according to their structural characteristics, rather analyzing grammatical structures and comparing them in search of similarities and differences. here the most commonly used types of typological classification. In isolated languages, words typically consist of one morpheme. Such a language lacks inflection, word and order has grammatical meaning. Content words and functional words present a weaker position. In different contexts, one word can stand for an object, attribute, action. Words cannot be separated from morphemes. Compound words cannot be isolated from syntagms. Agglutinating language. Words in this language are comprised of several morphemes. Word and form formation is achieved through affixation. Inflecting languages can be described as languages having the forms of separate words whose affixes demonstrate their grammatical forms and meanings. One affix may showcase more than one grammatical category meaning. Inflecting languages can be in turn divided into two types. Synthetic languages are languages where words already contain grammatical meanings inside. Word order is not strictly regulated. Languages showcase syntactic relations via inflection and agglutination. Analytic languages distinct syntactic relations within the confines of one sentence, applying particles, function, and grammatical words. One more feature is the ability of words to change their class without help from affixes and endings. In typological classification, Chinese is universally dubbed as being an isolated language. Now we will determine if it is so. So we consider some of the features of an isolated language. Words typically consist of one morpheme. I, ilu, one belt, one rod. So I is one, dai is belt, lu is rod. And the same can be said about the next example. Shangbanyan, first half of the year. Word order has grammatical meaning. 无人车采用乐高式模块化车头 unmanned vehicles use legal style modular forms. In this case, if we interchanged object and subject, the meaning would be lost. In different contexts, one word can stand for an object, attribute, or action. Let us compare the role of the word work in its different roles. First, action. 我在港口工作了10多年. I have worked in the port for over 10 years. Attribute. 工作人员对这些无人车非常好奇. Staff, working people are very curious about these unmanned vehicles. And finally, object. 无人车的工作效率将高于人工车. The work efficiency of unmanned vehicles will be higher than that of manned vehicles. Compound words cannot be isolated from syntagms. 现在买车时机不错. Now is a good time to buy a car. Here you can see that 现在 means now, 时机 means opportunity, and 不错 means not bad, good. All examples have been taken from the Xinhua news articles. However, some researchers are of the opinion that Chinese language, modern Chinese language, Mandarin, cannot be unavoidably connected to only one type, isolating, as it demonstrates the features of different languages. Songs in his work separates languages into two groups, isolating and non-isolating. And then inside these groups, he suggests that all these languages have flexion and agglutination. And he says that isolating languages can be called form isolating, and non-isolating languages can be called form linking. And modern Chinese is an isolating language possessing agglutinating morphology. Solonsov lists agglutinating features of Chinese language, such as, but not limited by, verb suffixes. 经过状态双方团队的共同努力 after the joint efforts of the Chinese and Thai teams, Plural form noun pronoun suffix man. 学习如何与他们一起工作to learn how to work with them. Passive voice particles. 中共吧，人民至于最高职位people are put in the highest position by the Chinese Communist Party. Verb word duplication. 中国牢牢把握住历史机遇. China firmly grasps the historical opportunity. And all these examples as well have been taken from the Xinhua news articles. In conclusion, I would like to tell you that the result of this research is the following conclusion. Chinese as a method of communication used by native speakers adapted to the world and changed with times. Its grammatical and syntactic structures as well as vocabulary undergone severe adjustments. It meant that Chinese, previously believed to be a clear case of isolated language, began to showcase attributes of other types of languages. Its place in genetic classification, due to being determined by its ancestor, remains completely unchanged.
Just a second, please. I guess that we have some kind of guests who just forgot to turn off their microphone. Okay, now everything is right. Please, dear guests, dear colleagues, can you turn off your microphones? Thank you so much.
Okay, do you have questions?
Okay, so if you are ready, please, where we can take questions, dear colleagues. Let me ask one question, but I need one slide.
Okay, which one?
Just a moment.
There was one. First of all, I can speak Chinese, but I have a question. Can you put the previous, as far as I remember, the previous slide, not the references? No.
There was that program.
Because I can't say the word which I saw.
Let's make it once again. Maybe it's one word. So here we are.
No.
Yeah, it's not working.
Can I do it with that?
Just to close it, maybe once again.
Okay.
Okay, like this.
Because I need one slide in the end where there were examples.
Okay, let's go to that.
Yeah. The next one. And one more. It's where the examples were. And the next, please, next. No, that is the previous, yes. It's very interesting for me because not knowing Chinese, I would like to ask a question about the last sentence. Formally, the word formally, but in Chinese, these are two words. Does it mean that two similar words mean one word in English?
That's a very nice question because in Chinese, sometimes simple words, not okay, simple words, one word lao means friendly, and sometimes to emphasize something, you double it.
I see, thank you.
For example, there's a nice sentence I always like to teach it to my students. Like when you go out with your friends, you go out to do something fun,
Okay.
like not related to work or job or your job. It's go,
Okay.
and then you put verb, suffix r, and again you double this construction.
Just to emphasize.
Yes, just to
see.
To emphasize this suffix, it gives meaning like our suffixes for small things. So it means that your action will be brief.
Okay.
So what's your Barbara?
Do we have something similar to any of the other languages? Maybe just so you can answer such kind of question.
Well,
Like in English, we don't have this for sure.
as I know, is French in French? No.
Our linguists, do we have something
Well,
similar?
we have in English, but like in oral speech, when we speak to our friends, when you are asked something and you say yeah,
Okay, but that's not just
But that's
the
not-
same. That's not the same.
that's oral speech.
That's
not
all
written.
Yeah, and that's not actually the same. Here, just I guess it's kind of a unique structure. And have you looked all the positions in diachronic space, like in diachronic aspects? I mean, in different periods of time, just how it has changed.
Sadly, I've stated in my speech that I analyzed only modern Chinese Mandarin, so I can't say for sure about
Modern Chinese, you meant just specifically modern, like 2020s, right?
no.
A bit earlier,
Yes,
like 2000s.
yeah,
2000s.
and maybe even 1960, maybe even earlier, because this word formation that we see, this tendency of Chinese language, for example, this is one word. But previously, it wasn't like that. It was one word per morpheme. I have an example. If you compare my first examples where one word is per morpheme, and then I had examples like here, like it's two words. They have each of these words have meanings on their own,
And together they
and
have
together
only one.
they form one
The
word.
only one.
Yeah.
So it's a kind of typical situation for Chinese.
Yes, and nowadays it's a difficult, especially when you have a very difficult for something like maybe 8 characters or more, and then it's constructed down to 2 or 4. Because they like to construct or to form words with 2 characters. It's
Thank you so much.
the tendency of the language.
Valeria, thank you so much. Just do I have some other questions? Thank you so much for very nice presentation and very informative speech. And just we move on forward. Let's see, just the next presenter. Manubia Ben Gadahem. Just I hope that I'm correct in the pronunciation of your name. Are you here? Please acknowledge that you are ready to present your item, your topic. Manubia, can you hear me? She's here, but she can't hear me. Okay. Can you try then to turn off your microphone in case you can't present your topic just right now? Manubia. Okay, let's move on further. So, Maryam Malishawa. Okay, just I can see that you are here.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
I'm very glad to see you are able to present your topic. The research of the borrowings in the modern Georgian language. And just here's the person to present the Kursk State Medical University of Russia. And just dear guests, dear colleagues, try not to be too strict as far as the person has specialty in the medical sphere, okay, not in linguistics.
They study English for only 2 years. Imagine that during the first year, they have one class of English, 2 hours in 2 weeks. But I'm your teacher. I'm explaining.
Okay, now we can see the presentation. We'll just, I hope you to be able to see it. Please, Mariam, can you see your presentation? Yeah, it's fine?
Yes.
Just a second. Wait then. Is it okay now? Mariam, can you hear? Can you
Yes.
see the screen? It's fine.
Yes. Yes, it's fine.
Okay. Thank you so much. Though, just we are ready to listen to your topic.
Thank you. Next slide, please. Borrowed words can be found in any language. It is a result of intercultural communication at many levels. Some borrowed words denote some items and concepts that were not yet present in society and in the language. Next slide, thank you. I am a bilingual student and I take part in the Students' Scientific Society of the Department of Foreign Languages of Kurt State Medical University. I got interested in the lexical aspects of the Georgian and English languages. In modern Georgian language, the process of change at all levels are observed. Historically, we can say that the Georgian language was influenced by Greek, Persian, Turkish, Arabic, and Russian. The English language making influence on the Georgian language. That is why the problem of borrowings into the Georgian language is relevant. It is of great importance both for the linguists and native speakers of the Georgian language. The purpose of this study was to analyze lexical units borrowed into the Georgian language from the different languages. We were paying special attention to the words borrowed from the English language. We used the method of content analysis of the scientific works in philology and comparative analysis of the borrowed vocabulary and the original vocabulary of English language. The modern Georgian language has about 130,000 words. It contains about 20,000 words of a foreign origin: Greek, Turkish, Arabic, French, Latin, Russian. We would like to start with the loanwords of Aryan origin. They are one of the most ancient borrowings in the Georgian language. Some ancient Aryan loanwords are common for the Georgian and other Kartvelian languages. Words of Aryan origin began to appear in the Georgian language in the 10th, 9th centuries BC because of the invasion of the Scythians to the northern Caucasus. The borrowings from the Aryan languages denote the notions for the sphere of the military affairs, many names of kings for the Pharnavas dynasty. Pharnavas, Mirian, Parnadlam also have Aryan origin. The first king of this dynasty was Pharnavas I of Iberia, who declared Georgian as a state language. The words of Greek origin appeared in the Georgian language due to Christianity, that became the state religion of Kartli or Iberia in 3019. Greek words were borrowed by the Greeks and authors of the religion literature. Speaking about the words of Latin origin, we can say that some of them are the words of general conversation. For example, tomato, in Georgian it is tomati, or piano, in Georgian it is royally. Like in many other languages, the Georgian words of a Latin origin denote medical terms. For example, spasm, spasmi in Georgian. But the medical vocabulary in the Georgian language is also of Greek and Arab origin because of cooperation with the well-known schools of medicine of Greece and in the Arabic countries. Words of Arabic origin belong to religions and military vocabularies. Georgian military terminology is mostly borrowed. First borrowings were made mainly from the Turkic and Arabic languages. For example, pistol, in Georgian it is dambacha, or grenade, in Georgian it is kumbara. Words, next slide, please. Thank you. Words related to military terminology were also borrowed from the Russian language during the Soviet period. For example, tank, in Georgian it is tanki, from the Russian tank. Pistol, in Georgian pistoleti, from the Russian pistolet. Consul, in Georgian it is polkovnik, from the Russian polkovnik. And infirmary, in Georgian it is lazareti, from the Russian lazaret. The other words borrowed from Russian denote some names of objects of art and cultural, such as matryoshka doll. In Georgian it is matryoshka. Russian wooden dolls of describing the size placed one inside another, or samovari. Samovar, a metal container traditionally used to heat and boil water. The content analysis of the works of Georgian linguists shows that since the 1990s, a large number of neologisms of English origin have been borrowed into the Georgian language. After the collapse of the USSR, international tourism began to develop in Georgian. Students got the chance to study in the United States and other English-speaking countries. International companies were created in the country.
Mario, your scientific supervisor just is really nervous a bit just because you are too rushing, you're too in a hurry, so just try to keep it calm, don't be nervous. So just take your time, don't worry, okay? Continue, please. Continue, please.
Okay, all these factors have created good conditions for the massive borrowings of the English word into the Georgian language. This vocabulary refers to politics, science and technology, business, media, education, cultural, tourism, or everyday communication. The words of general conversation borrowed from English are widely used, especially by young people. For example, selfie, in Georgian it is selfie, or tabloid, in Georgian it is tabloidi. Its word mentions that the word tabloidi was modified when borrowings from the English language. It has a letter E. Is in the Georgian language where nouns with the roots ending with it. The newest borrowings have a lack of stable spelling, which is an indicator that the adaptation in the language is at an early stage. For example, in the Georgian equivalent for the English word top model. These are different letters. The analysis of borrowed vocabulary has showed that in the Georgian language, English borrowings undergo some more processes of adaptation. Here, for examples of two waves of orthographic adaptations of an English word in the Georgian language. transcription, when the pronunciation of an English word is completely copied by the Georgian alphabet. For example, barman in Georgian it is barmeni, or rugby in Georgian it is rugby. Image in Georgian, for example, image. And a transliteration when the spelling of an English word is completely copied by the Georgian alphabet. For example, gangster in Georgian it is gangstery. This word in Georgian, monitor. This word in Georgian it is monitoring. And for example, internet, this word in Georgian is interneti. Also, it is interesting that the borrowing of the English word can take place by means of an intermediary language, for example, Russia. In this case, the word is transcribed based on its sound in the intermediary language. For example, budget. In Georgian, it is budgeting. Or partner. In Georgian, it is partnering. Sometimes a lack of state regulation in the field of borrowings is observed. The analysis of many brand names, the names of shops or restaurants, has shown that they contain lexical mistakes. There are such names as new meat. In Georgian, it is akhalipuri instead of fresh meat. Or new bread. In Georgian, it is akhalipuri instead of fresh bread. These names are completely unacceptable from a linguistic. Unacceptable, yes, from a linguistic point of view. The state cannot use the words above mentioned, but the mistakes should be corrected. The sooner a borrowed word undergoes orthographic, phonological, morphological, and semantic adaptation in the receiving language, the sooner it will be integrated into the host language. And the present-day problems of the Georgian language are similar to what's affecting other languages, including Russian. The measures to develop spelling standards for the vocabulary borrowed seem to be effective. Both Georgian and the other languages with the source of borrowed words, including the English language, are unique, and processes of borrowing enriches the Georgian language with remains rich and incomparable. The process of borrowing from any language is inevitable, but it gives each language its own identity, and it's of interest for the philologists, language teachers, and specialists in cultural study. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your presentation. Can you just pronounce it in Georgian? Thanks for listening.
Madloba quraqrebistvis.
Beautiful, wonderful. So, dear guests, dear colleagues, do we have any kind of questions? Please, Helena, but try to be loud.
Maybe I should ask in Russian.
Maybe come here as far as just the microphone. Here, just put up the microphone.
Марьян, вы билингвал, правильно?
Yes.
У вас грузинский родной и русский, правильно?
Да, все правильно.
Я вам такой по поводу грузинского языка. Вы говорили про заимствование, правильно? То есть, там, например, интернет пришел из английского, и там еще были слова разных, там, монитор и так далее. То есть заимствования, которые обозначают новые, опять же, материалы, которые перешли из другой страны, правильно? А вот
Да.
смотрите, есть ли в грузинском языке так называемый варваризм? То есть, например, как в русском языке есть хорошее слово «творчество», а мы начинаем что использовать? Креативность, да, то есть вот на такой манер. Есть слово «род», мы используем гендер. Вот в грузинском языке вот варваризм тоже есть, там, например, уже есть хорошее грузинское слово, оно охватывает все значения, и вдруг начинают использовать на английский манер, там, не знаю, какое-нибудь слово.
Что-нибудь другое.
Даже другое.
Я как, скажем так, судя по тому, как разговаривает молодежь сейчас, то такие моменты все-таки присутствуют. Они есть, но я бы не сказала бы, чтобы это так было прям массивно.
Спасибо, то есть молодежь все портит.
Хорошее заключение. Марьям, подскажите, пожалуйста, наблюдается ли тенденция того, что заимствования идут в приоритете сейчас из какого-то определенного языка в связи с геополитической обстановкой, скажем так?
Но сейчас...
Возможно, это больше, например, английских заимствований на данный момент. Или наоборот, все-таки есть и русские заимствования. Ну, я думаю, что вопрос понятен, да?
Да, конечно. По моим личным наблюдениям, все-таки заимствования больше идут из английского языка, потому что молодежь, она больше ориентирована на английский язык, на изучение английского языка, и все-таки они применяют именно слова из английского. А вот насчет русского языка я могу сказать только то, что его изучают в Грузии, но чтобы, скажем так, каких-то прям заимствований, да, то есть такого, ну, в общем, я хочу сказать то, что в основном это из английского языка происходит заимствование.
Ну вот я заметила одну из, по крайней мере, одну из лексем, которую вы представили на слайдах, скажем так, в транскрипции, да, там было именно слово греческого происхождения. То есть таких слов тоже много, как я понимаю, да, в грузинском?
Да, это сложилось исторически, то есть это связано с историей, потому что были влияния разных, скажем так, народов, и, конечно же, без заимствований здесь тоже не обошлось.
Спасибо огромное вам за представление интересной темы. Вот с английским языком абсолютно не переживайте, у вас все получилось. Вот. И ваша замечательная научный руководитель. Я тоже в этом плане успокою. Олеся Владимировна, пожалуйста, не переживайте. Молодец, она молодец.
Часов на изучение, вы понимаете, закон все-таки сложновато.
Спасибо вам огромное за представление темы. Так, и сейчас хотелось бы узнать, у нас присутствует Manubia Benhadem. Just, are you here from Tunisia? I can see you in the participants, but just you are not answering. Are you ready to present your topic?
Yes, I'm ready. Where is the micro?
Okay, just that's great that you have answered. Now just I can show the presentation.
I'm ready. I'm ready. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can
do you hear me?
We can hear you. Okay, let me help and let me just give the presentation. Let me open the presentation.
Okay. حلي البرزنتاسيون بتاعي عندك يفرحك.
Okay, so.
Okay. حلي البرزنتاسيون بتاعي عندك. Thank you. This one.
Just a second. The other. Okay. Can you see? Can you see now the presentation?
I'm seeing my presentation on my laptop, but do you see me?
We can't see you, but that's not a problem. As far as we can We can hear
No
you.
problem, no problem. Like I can see all now. It is good.
Mhm.
It is good.
So just we can hear now just the Manubia band guitar, and I hope that just I'm pronouncing it correctly. Correct me if I'm not.
Correct, very correct.
Okay, from High Institute of Languages of Tunisia. And please, just you're welcome to start your presentation.
Thank you. Thank you. Today I will talk you about one famous writer, Tunisian, but he is very particular because he is not the classic. He is very different from others. He did in 1933. He did in 1933 a cruise in Mediterranean, and he write a relation of his travel. This relation, how can I move? How can I move this? How can I move this?
Can you hear me?
How can I move?
Just tell me. I will assist you. Okay, just tell me. Next slide,
Second, third. Bon. One of his works is a travel relation published in '93, Mediterranean Backroad. I translated this text, La tournée des bars de la Méditerranée. The title is really a very big problem in Tunisia, in a Muslim society, to talk about bars. Suivant. Last.
The next slide.
Next.
Okay.
Well, the purpose of this study is to discover, first of all, a journey of an elite before the establishment of mass tourism, and the cultural image, which is the fruit of an apologetic apprehension of the world. He went to Europe and he speak about Europe like someone who is not really admirative. There is very much criticism. First of all, this book is an unusual travel relation. From the outset, the book begins by, I won't tell you all you are, we have the habit to tell. No, I will never serve you here the cliché, never. I will present true images devoid from of exaggeration or fiction. What he will write. Next, please. The narrative of this journey is subjective. It is a place of recreation with the double sense of the term. Entertainment, as claimed by the author, and recreation is a new creation. But, first of all, entertainment. This journey is the journey of an adult man who looks to distract himself, his journey to entertain him and to entertain the reader. He has the consciousness of being different. He is an intellectual who represents another aristocracy, that of the spirit superior to the others. and recreation as a new creation. Douaji, all country, he went there, he make it his country. He looked at the country with his eyes, and there is nothing sacred, nothing. He appropriate le model of what is called le Grand Tour. And he discovered the Mediterranean by his own eyes. Next, please. And next. Well, in this book, we have a personal discovery of the world and of man. And behind the otherness, Douaji finds the points of contact. He recourse to testimony. He used scene, experience with direct contact. The purpose of his trip is the discovery of his contemporaries and foreign countries as they were in his time, and not in time immemorial or in history book and museum. And he constated something. The world is changing, but the admirers of the past don't see the change. Some will still seek how the ancient Pompeians cultivate peanuts or play tennis, and they do not see the uniforms that flowed the streets of the fascist Italy. But Douaji did it. He will use a lot of humor, derision, and even irony. And this irony can be caustic. But all this is to give another vision of the reality of the life. He did so many portraits of his traveling companions, and some of them are caricatures. We have some. This woman is the universal knowledge, Mrs. Universal Knowledge. She knows everything. You can speak with her with everything, she responds. And the other caricature made by Douaji, the caricature made by Douaji is the Sultan Abdelhamid II, but in European clothes, like Atatürk want that Turkish must wear. They must wear European. So he said, if Abdelhamid was alive, he would be like this. Next, please. Second, first of all, it is an unusual relation travel, but the cruise is to meet people. It is an opportunity to meet people, to discover the other. And this discovery is made by two ways between two opposite poles. First pole, the doxa, and we have all the writers, the famous writers like Loti, Lamartine, and the tourist who loves museum. You have the Blue Guide, Mrs. Universal Knowledge, the schoolmaster. All these represent the doxa, and in front we have the second pole, people not so different from Douaji. with whom he can build relationships. Maud, Zuleika, the Syrian Jew, the Cypriot, etc. And he presents this trip like a test of humanism, like an occasion for meeting. And his conclusions are otherness, it is multiple and plural, like us. And travel is to go to the other, to his history, to his life, not to visit museum and the ruins.
Manube,
Not
I'm
just
sorry to disturb your speech. Just we have limits of time. Just maximum
yes.
10 minutes. As far as you have 23 slides,
is
I guess.
also the reason. Is also the reason for the criticism. The guides is traveling, don't show the reality. Please the next.
Thank you so much. I'm sorry.
And he speak about himself and the others. He is a simple spectator, and the others are near me. He present speaking about money. He parle from dirham. Next diapo, please. The trip is a meeting of culture, and there is 3 points. He tries to see the people they are really. His companion looked for museum, and the European saw uniquement just cliché. The next, please. All the strip claim the rejection, the refuse of all is old. The few people who talks about without acrimony are young. Douaji was 24 years. And what about women? Not nothing. There is no women Arab, no older. The best women are the women from Turkey, from which is the westernized Eastern. Why all this? Please, next and next. And next. All this is because the strip is a cast for a model of society. His message is Tunisian society must change. Changes are needed, and we have models not far from home, around the Mediterranean. Bon. France is refused, colonialist. Italy is dangerous because rising of fascism. The model is tout simplement Turkey of Atatürk, because he shows him a society on the right path. He has broken with the past, strong and ridiculous, and it becomes the emulator of European. For more details, you can see the written version of this intervention. And thank you. Спасибо.
Thank you for your attention, especially for being able to say it in Russian language. And thank you just that you have managed to attend to join our conference today from Tunisia. Do we have any questions here?
Well, I have only one question to Manu there. Was this novel or this book you spoke about, was it translated into Russian?
Manu,
About
was this book translated into Russian?
Was this book translated into Russian language?
Or no? Or
No.
English?
No.
Or English?
In English, maybe. I don't know. I will translate it in English because really it is interesting to see how a Tunisian see the European in this period. And it is because before it is the travel, the journey of an elite, because it is before the mass tourism, the tourism of mass. But in Russia, no. But it we must translate it. It is really interesting.
And just you are doing now translations into English on your own, right?
I hope all translation you will find on my paper are mine, because there is not translated in English, but I will try it in English.
Thank you so much. We will try to learn just from your publication more about this about this author. Thank you so much for presenting your item. We have one more guest coming. Just would you mind? Okay, just from Tunisia, one more guest. She should have been the first one actually. Lila Beltaif. Am I correct to pronounce your surname?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here.
Okay, so I'm very glad to see also you just today in during our conference. Let me find your presentation.
Excuse me, I didn't understand very well. What did you say?
Can you repeat once again, because the connection maybe is not so good, so just I can't hear you well. Please, can you repeat once again?
I will speak about words that travel. I don't speak fluently English, but I will try to do it.
It's a bit difficult to understand your speech now. Maybe just can you try to talk without your headphones? Maybe it will be easier to understand you. Just there is some kind of problem with the microphone.
I will change my PC. Just a minute. I will change my PC. Just a minute, please.
Okay. Okay. So let me then ask another person for you to be able to change the computer. Okay. Okay.
You hear me now? Is it better now?
Is it better now?
Is it better now?
Yeah, I guess it's better now. It's much better.
Okay, okay.
Just a bit louder. Or here we are. Wonderful. Now it's much better. Thank you so much for being able to change. So just a second. Let me find your presentation. Here it is.
Yes, I'm ready. You can start.
Try to just speak a bit slower and just distinctively for us to be able to understand, just because of the problems in connection. Okay.
Okay.
Essaye de mettre le diapo. Ah.
Okay. So, can you see the presentation?
Yes, yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
So just let me put it in a slideshow. Just a second. Here we are.
Yes.
So just, and I will assist you. Just tell me next slide, and just I'll be here with you. Okay.
Well, can you start, please?
No.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? That's the main question.
We heard you, but we saw nothing.
We don't see anything on the screen.
Okay, just a second. Let me cover this moment once again. Let me do it this way then.
Good.
Yeah, can you see it right now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, thank you so much. Wonderful. So let's go on. And just please try to mind the limits of time, as far as just we are pressurized by the time. Okay? Thank you so much.
Okay. So, hello, I'm Lilia Bensaï from the University of Carthage, and I speak about words that travel. Next one, please.
It's still difficult to understand, but try to speak distinctively, okay? We're different, just cutting.
Okay. Alors, when we speak about interculturality, we certainly think of language exchange and words that travel between the languages. Some of them carry traces of their land, native. Other words come back disguised, and sometimes it's difficult to identify their origin. The purpose of the study. Okay. The purpose of the study is to show how words travel between languages and losing their original identity, using examples from Arabic and the French languages. So how do the journey of these words go? We will think firstly about words that migrated to Arabic language, then words that immigrated from Arabic language, and in final, we will see how some words make shipwreck. Next one, please. Let's start with words that migrated to Arabic languages. First example, the Arabic word dinar. If you ask someone where the word dinar comes from, he will tell you certainly from Arabic language, because it's a word that is not found anywhere in the West. Dinar is the currency of some Arab countries, including Tunisia. So let's take a look to its journey. Dinar was born in Latin language, denarius, firstly in the sense of cent, after denarius, aureus will be a gold coin. First stop of his journey at Greece. In Greek language, denarius became denarion. Second step in the Arabic language, dinarion became dinar and refers to an exclusively Arabic currency. In the West, the only trace we have of dinarius is in the French word denier, which means an old French coin. Let's recall that Arabs didn't have their own currency, so they used the solidus Roman gold coin at the beginning of the 4th century, and at the end of the 2nd century they minted their first currency, the dinar, inspired by the Roman denarius under the Caliph Abdul Malik ibn Marwan. The second example of words that migrated to Arab language is dirham. It was, next one please, it was born in Greek language and called drachmae, a unit of measure about 3.5 grams. Then it became a coin. First stop, it went to the Roman Empire in the 2nd century, and drachmae became drachma in Latin language, a unit of measure. The second stop of its journey, after Latin language, drachma went to Andalusia and the Middle East between the 2nd and the 11th century. In Arabic language, drachma became dirham, a coin. Let's see now other words that immigrated language. The next one, please. The next one, please. Right? First example, the French word carafe. It appears, the next one, please. Oh, mais il y a un problème. Non, il y a un problème. The next one, please. Wait. The next one, please.
Right? Write it.
Carafe.
Is that right?
I will speak about carafe now. Okay. Carafe, it appears in the 14th century. Raquette de la main, the scarf. Then coming from carafe, okay. Alors, in the 2nd century appeared the French word carafe from the Italian word carafa, itself derived from French language, garafa, borrowed from Arabic language, garafa, which means a drinking pot. The example of racket. The next one, please. Il y a un problème de connexion là. Right, okay, thank you. It appeared in the 14th century, raquette de la main, meaning the scarf, coming from Latin rasceta manus, the hand scarf, and in fact it was born in Arabic language, rahat al-yad, the palm of the hand. How can we explain such origin? The next one, please. In the scientific publication of museum, no. We can read that the 14th century, the Arab doctors was a reference for the Westerns. Okay, next one. But not all trips go well, some may be racket. Let's see the example of the Arabic word mahzun. Next one, please. Okay. Mahzun is an Arabic word. The plural form is mahazun, meaning a deposit of merchandise. The first stop of its journey was in Spain, where we say al-magazin. Second stop in Italia, magazzino. Third stop in the French language, magasin. Since some speakers don't pronounce the phoneme h, they replace it by an accessible variant g, and magazine became magazzino in Italian and magasin in French. Strangely, when the word returned to the classical Arab language, it changed form and meaning. It's used according the French word, and today in Arabic language we have two words, mahzan to mean a deposit and magaza to mean a store. Next one, please. The next word is horse. You can see its journey. It was born in Arab language. During its journey, it made a first stop at Andalusia. Horshuf became Al-Karshofa. Second stop in Spain, Al-Karshofa became Al-Kashofa. Third stop in Italy, where we find artichoke, and fourth stop in England, when artichoke became artichoke. Back to Arabic language, horshuk became artichoke, and it was borrowed from English language. Conclusion. This is the story of words that travel. Next one, please. Sometimes they carry Next one, please. Okay. Sometimes they journey to outside culture and history of their native language. Other times they may to discover other words and other words, even if it means metamorphosing. Next one. For more details, you can see the written version of this intervention. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much for your presentation. It's very interesting material, though the connection was just, there was some kind of problem with the speech, with the voice, okay, with the connection. But just afterwards, we'll be able also to read your publication. Thank you so much. Do you have any questions, dear colleagues, dear guests? Up to now, just we don't have questions, but just we can put them also in a chat. Thank you so much, dear colleagues from Tunisia, to join our conference, our session today. And just we continue, we're moving forward. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Alisa Vladimirovna, just let me ask you just to present the item. Just a second. You'll be standing. Okay, it's more comfortable for. Would you like to stand here? Okay. Can you please? I will just assist. I will just open your presentation just right now. So, just a second. Алиса Владимировна, там где-то есть разгрузка для RUDN. Here we are. Just it's much faster when you can point out.
Dear friends, I would like to speak about usage of the texts. Well, before we start, I will explain that the topic of my report is usage of the text for the interdisciplinary education of the medical students. So I teach English at the medical university. As I've said before, we have very limited amount of hours for teaching English and for studying English. And moreover, of course, at a provincial university, the initial level of the knowledge of English by our students is not very good because they come from villages, from small towns, and so on. So the next slide, please. So, and of course, traditionally, when we speak about teaching English for medical students, we speak about reading and translating texts. So it was a traditional kind of educational activities at the classes, but you see a very bored student. For him, it's not very nice to read and translate text because modern students want to have some other kinds of activities, such as role plays, business games, didactic dramas. But unfortunately, at a medical university, we can't implement all these role plays and business games without reading texts by the students, because students need to get some knowledge of medical vocabulary, and where can a student get it? Of course, while reading texts. So the next slide. So, nowadays the teacher faces many problems while using the text in the classes, because first of all, students like to use online translators, and they get the ready-made texts. So our students don't have much time to pay only for English, because having classes on Saturdays, having 4 classes a day, studying physiology, anatomy, and so on, they don't think that English is a very important subject. So that's why they like to use these online translators. And for the teachers, it becomes more relevant, more actual to use more lexical exercises in the classes for the students better learning the medical vocabulary. And sometimes medical terminology is translated not correctly into English. I remember some years ago when the online translators were not so good, I remember that some students, not my students, I found a piece of paper in one room where there was a translation made, and there was the sentence, the stomach has 3 coats. Well, and where the word coat means оболочка. But the students once translated it like пальто. У желудка 3 пальто. I remember it was written. So the students were using this electronic translator. They got the incorrect translation, but they didn't notice the mistake. For them, the most important that they got a ready-made translation. So the next slide, please. So moreover, our students, when they make dialogues, when they make different dramatizations during business games and role plays, well, they don't want to find some words in the texts. So again, they make, for example, they want to translate translate from Russian a certain phrase of a doctor, but they don't want to look into the textbooks. Well, they prefer to use online translators, and let me show you some examples of it. So in the textbook, what was in the textbook? What phrases haven't the students read in the textbooks? They haven't read what's the trouble or what troubles you, what do you complain of? But the students say, what worries you, what bothers you? These are lexical mistakes. Well, when they use electronic translator, well, then they can make grammar mistakes such as what is troubles you? Well, it's something weird, well, but it's a real mistake. Well, the next slide. So what do we want to propose to our students? Well, first of all, our students of different faculties, they study English for only 2 years. But during the 2nd year, they study bioethics. So bioethics is a new science. I will explain later very briefly what is it, but we decided to form interdisciplinary links of foreign language and bioethics. The next slide. So we would like to say that these students who study English and bioethics, they should pay attention that bioethics is the ethics of medical profession. The science studies not only the problems of ethical communication of a doctor and the patient, it also studies moral or ethic attitude to abortion, to euthanasia, and so on. But we were paying attention only to our medical ethics, deontology of medicine, and models of doctor and patient communication. Well, because at the classes of English, our students try to imitate the communication of a doctor and the patient. So, and in order to imitate it properly, for a doctor to speak correctly, from ethic point of view, our students should know principles of bioethics and rules of bioethics. So we continue. So doctors and patients communicate using different models. Well, there are, for example, paternalistic model, informative model, interpretive model. I will not explain it very detailedly, but the aim of the students is now to read the texts in English about these models. Of course, these are new texts. I was making these texts myself because for some years I was also teaching bioethics for Russian students in Russian. There was a lack of teachers at the Department of Philosophy. And my second higher education is in law, but bioethics is closely connected with law. Well, and I was also teaching bioethics for our foreign students because our foreign students are taught in English. Well, we have students from India, Brazil, Nigeria, many African countries. So, for example, our students now, our Russian students first read the text about, for example, paternalistic model. And knowing English, knowing Latin, they can translate that pater is father, but this model means that in this case, a doctor is not a loving father. Well, he's like a very strict father. Well, the doctor says, you will do what I want. Well, you will take what the medicines that I want, and so on. So the doctor thinks that he is much cleverer than his patient. Well, this model is not suitable for modern patients. Well, now we have collegiate model, but students learn how not to communicate with the patient, so to say. Well, if we speak about informative model, well, the students again read the text about informative model. And in case of informative model, the doctor explains about the patient, what methods he will be using, well, what ways of treatment are there, and so on and so forth. Well, the next slide, please. Well, moreover, our students read about principles of bioethics. Well, the first and the most important is respect for autonomy. What does it mean? Well, their future doctors should read that the patient is an autonomous person, the patient can refuse from the treatment, and sometimes they even imitate the behavior of the doctor and the patient after reading this text, of course. Well, for example, the patient doesn't like the treatment and the patient refuses. So the doctor mustn't yell at the patient. The doctor explains that it's your right, you can refuse from the treatment. Well, and there are some other principles, and it's very interesting that there is a principle of non-maleficence. When the students first saw this word, I asked them, what does this word remind you of? And only one girl answered that it reminds me of the name of the witch Maleficenta. So Maleficenta was an evil witch. Well, mal, I know that you know that in French it is bad. Well, maleficence, it's doing bad, but non-maleficence is doing no harm. Well, so non-maleficence means that the doctor mustn't do any harm for the patient. So, and even if a doctor speaks rudely with a patient, it is also harm, and our students should know it. So the next slide. So we were using business game. I designed a business game that some students are playing the roles of the patients. Well, the guy in the middle is the chief doctor, and another guy is a doctor. So the patient came to the chief doctor to complain of unethical behavior of a doctor, of your treating doctor. And of course, the chief doctor called this treating doctor, and they were discussing why was this behavior not ethical. So our students get reflective skills, so they learn how to evaluate their actions. Well, they should see themselves by the eyes of the patient. So their future doctors, they should know how it is to be a patient. So the next slide. Well, moreover, there are some rules of bioethics. The students also read texts composed by me. Well, I was using different internet resources, but of course I had to adapt these texts. For the students to understand, I have to take into account that their knowledge of English is not very good. So we have some rules of ethics, well, informed consent, veracity, confidentiality, privacy protection, and I will show you an example of privacy protection. Well, I mean the example of breaking of this rule. So in my textbook for the students, there are some cartoons found in the internet, and here is an example of this cartoon. So here the nurse is breaking the rule of patient's privacy. Well, you can see that she says to the patient that the doctor is running a bit late. So, Mr. Kelly, how's that rash on your groin coming along? Well, I think you can understand. I don't need to translate it. Well, what does it mean, rash? Sit. Well, and groin, well, it's a very intimate place, so to say. But I understand that she tries to take care of him, but the other patients hear it well, so it is a breaking of the rule of privacy. So after seeing these pictures, our students are asked to write a small story, sometimes it's a humorous story, well, about this situation. And the task of the student is to write what happened next. Well, did Mr. Kelly refuse from the treatment? Well, according to the principal, or maybe he decided to have a conversation to explain to the nurse that it's not very good, or maybe the doctor came and told it. So the students now create the text of their own. So they get some creative skills, but I understand that again they will be using these online translators, but I think that it is better to make a mistake, but then to correct this mistake. Well, the next slide. So here are some examples of topics for creative writing for those texts created by the students. Well, for example, should a modern doctor use paternalistic model in the activity, or why should the doctors respect the patient's autonomy? And we even discuss the oath of Hippocrates because they studied the oath of Hippocrates at the classes of bioethics. The next slide. So what has my experience shown? Well, I understand that this interdisciplinary experience is efficient. Well, and the usage of texts about the aspects of bioethics and the classes of English is really useful. Our students of the second year start thinking of their future activity, of your future professional activity. Of course, it's not very nice that English is studied during only the first and the second year. When I was visiting many conferences in Europe before the pandemic, for example, my colleagues from many countries, for example, from Romania, they told that in their country, the students study English for 5 years because after that they have an opportunity to find a job in the English-speaking countries. So we don't have it. And I think that, of course, we should use this method of creation of the new text by the students. But of course, if you want to use texts at the classes, the teacher should know what text to use. Of course, we cannot just find a text of a scientific article in the internet and don't adapt it. I think it's very difficult. But we should take into account that we have to make a balance. Well, this poor knowledge of English after secondary school. And on the other hand, we should give them the knowledge of their professional vocabulary and moreover their professional competencies. So sometimes it's very difficult. Well, and we have cooperation with the Department of Philosophy. Well, the Department of Philosophy, where bioethics is taught, provide us with relevant information about modern tendencies in bioethics. And that's why we try to use these interdisciplinary relations. It's very interesting, I suppose. So the next slide. So here are some references. Well, I was trying to write some articles about interdisciplinary links some years before. Well, the first link is, by the way, to the article when our students were studying well, even some aspects of world religions. By the way, if anyone is interested, you can read. It's very unusual article. Well, but it was many years ago when the students were studying different intercultural topics during the first year. They had the topic about religions, they had the topic about English traditions and so on, but nowadays, unfortunately, we don't have this aspect. Now we teach only English for medical purposes or only medical vocabulary. But at the very end, please show the next slide. If our students and teachers and all our colleagues are interested in taking part in our online conference, well, you can make a photo of my email. You can write to me because now we don't have a call for papers yet. But if you're interested, I will send you because, well, you can see we have a lot of topics for our conference. You can write papers not only about teaching English for medical students, but for any students. Well, we have even the topic culture, history, traditions, that is intercultural aspect. So we welcome you at our online conference as well. Thanks for your attention.
Yes, thank you so much. It was just very informative presentation and just on the whole speech. Thank you so much. Some questions maybe I would ask. Just 2 years, that's really not enough. Have you created your own course? Just in what kind of?
I can say that I created my own course because, well, in our university it's very strange. For example, I teach English for the students of the medical faculty. It's not the only faculty where I teach. And we have the ready-made program. And in this program, there are topics, communication of doctor and patient. And I try to add this aspect with bioethics to this topic. For another thing, for example, I make a working program for the students of the faculty of preventive medicine. Well, that student was from there. Well, and they have another aspect because they study mostly about epidemics or prevention of different diseases and so on. I can say that I have my own course. So we have ready-made programs, well, but we can add something to this. Well, I'm not an author of the problem for the students of the medical faculty.
But just for sure, you wish to enlarge it.
Yeah, of course I wish, because, for example, when they were studying these intercultural topics, there were classes of English 2 times a week during the first year. But now we have only 1 class in 2 weeks. So 1 week I teach some groups, and the next week I teach the other groups. So they're changing, so to say.
What about academic style of just English? Are they taught?
Yeah, they're taught, but not well enough. Because here for us the most important is just to form some skills of communication. Because unfortunately, even after studying at secondary schools, our students cannot even make a question correctly. Well, I have to remind them of does, do, and so on. And this girl who was presenting the report, she is from Moscow, but she studies in Kursk. But we have rather weak students, and we have to work a lot just for them to remind of grammar rules and to introduce the new vocabulary. That's why all our grammar exercises, well, for example, they're revising past simple. But what do they say? For example, what diseases did you treat? What symptoms did you have? So we're using medical vocabulary in grammar exercises.
Because as far as I know, just those students who are in the medical sphere, they are really lack of this kind of skills in academic sphere. As far as they need to write a lot of articles, they need to make publications in this sphere and to take part in international conferences, and they can't do that.
Yeah, but in our university, maybe it sounds strange, but for example, I'm in charge of our student scientific society, and our students, medical students, they should make reports, well, in philology, language teaching. It's very strange. I have to combine something. Well, how do the students perceive these methods? Well, do they like these methods? But it's strange that a future doctor will write a report or an article about methods of teaching medical English. But they make research in anatomy, physiology, and so on, but mostly in Russian.
I see.
That's a problem in our university.
That's where we should improve it and develop.
Yeah.
Please, dear colleagues, do you have questions?
Yes. I want to ask about bioethics. Ethics is quite a flexible thing. Is there certain common ethics about this planet, or it differs from country to country?
Well, I didn't make a research of it because, in fact, when I was teaching bioethics, well, in all the textbooks, it is said that these bioethics appeared in the 20th century in the USA and in Western countries. But nowadays, there are some aspects under research. For example, there is Islamic bioethics. Well, because I teach many students who are Muslims, I mean even the citizens of Russia, and they found very interesting information about the usage of bioethics in accordance with Islamic or Arabic culture. But I can't say that it differs from country to country, and moreover, at our classes, we don't have enough time to view that there is some sort of bioethics for the USA or another sort of bioethics for Russia. I wish I had more hours to make a research of the difference of bioethics in different countries. Thanks for your question.
Yes, I have a practical question around the same book, I think. So you just described different activities, right? So you organize during your classes. At the end of 2 years, your students take an exam.
No, unfortunately not. No. 10 years ago they had an exam, but now they have a graded test after each term. Now they will have a graded test in winter, then they study again then in summer, and the same during the second year. We have 4 graded tests.
So, what kind of test it is?
Well, usually it is some sort of communication, so they're given a case. Well, usually I give problem cases. For example, a doctor behaves not ethically, and they dramatize this situation. And after that, they should say how they would behave in this situation, how they would behave in an ethical way.
I average percentage of the passes or fail?
Well, usually all my students pass, but I know that in some other groups, but I can say about the other teachers because sometimes they want to have their own requirements for the credit access.
Thank you so much, dear guests and colleagues. Now, just we should have some break for 15 minutes, and then we will continue our session. Okay. Thank you so much. Да, может быть, у вас здесь so just we have a break.
Даже вот это вот принцип, если можно оставить. А то нас потом просят, знаете,
We have a break now for 15 minutes, and then we continue.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Enjoy
you so
break.
much. Andrea, I was really glad to see
Thank
you
you.
this time. Thank
No.
you.
Me too. Thank you. Thank you. See you then.
Вот. Его можно просто раскрыть в viewer и направо-налево. Или могу сам это сделать, просто лишь где он был.
So we're coming back after the break, and let's see just the next presentation. Here we are, right?
Is it the new one, the one that I've sent yesterday, right? Thank you.
That's the last one,
All right.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Just a second, let me demonstrate the screen, and please try to introduce yourself.
Yes, my name is Miklukho-Maklaya, and I'm very excited to talk to live people. It's a bit old-fashioned, but I really enjoy doing it. And
Pandemic period, especially.
after all, yes, it's not a topical thing to see today. So the topic of my research is andragogy, and the session path of the pedagogy to serve the international socio-cultural growth. And it sounds really scary, and I will try to do it as simple as possible, because there are some things that are really interesting if we try to dig inside of it. So nothing happens. You go right, a bit more right, to the right. Yes, it is. And a bit. Oh.
Come on.
It's impossible to make it to the right that much. Yeah, perfect. That's not that many on those things to see. So, but it's fine. So some introduction words, like during the 5th International Conference on Adult Education, andragogy was crowned as the key to the 21st century. And the fun fact that there is the minority of people who has any idea what the key is about. Nobody knows what andragogy is, but everybody knows what the pedagogy is. So I'll try to make it clear a bit, and I will try to. This is super fun. Can we do the second slide, please? Maybe just. Can we use the arrows?
Here.
Yeah, no problem. So I'll try to compare what's going on according to andragogy and in the Russian world and the foreign world. I'm trying to do an attempt to compare it, because of course it's pretty much impossible, because it's like too much information to compare. So the research has shown that there is a constant pattern in every civilized country. When the certain level of welfare is gained, pedagogy starts to concentrate on elders, and logic means that the state has enough source to think about not only about the youth, its core and future, but also about the grown-ups. It's those who don't soon will give no money as a taxpayers. So that's pretty much a civilized act of appearance about the common things in the state and the government. And we should take into consideration that education is quite a luxury feature of this world. And in most European countries, let aside America, there's a great focus on adult education and the training of relevant professionals in this particular sphere. I'm talking about adult education. So andragogy and adult education is pretty much the same, but it really differs a bit. But this is a whole another topic. I would like to say that adult education covers a bit bigger informational field and like practical field, but I will try to talk about it later, but because this is not the main part. We gotta understand that andragogy is just the adult education in its basic form, and is the most I don't know how to say it, maybe it was long before the adult education became popular. So it started in 1933, I guess. So we can see that almost in every European country, there's an adult education department to be found. And I don't want to get deep into numbers and dates, but as long as the war years were gone and the level of welfare in Europe has changed, so the focus has changed as well. And still being the motherland of androgyny, Europe was not the place to give it a further extension. America was, just because of the same reasons as here in this country. Second World War made the big stagnation, and everything was different here. We got some other problems to solve. So, as long as, yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much. As long as there are several Russian androgyny departments finally being established here in this country, I think that the relevance of this article is incredibly strong. So my attempt was to focus primarily on American and European recent history comparison with the Russian one. Yeah, so let's change the slide because yeah, I'm trying to move on, and I do understand that numbers are pretty boring to have as the main topic, so I'll try to make it as simple and short as possible. And here goes the main surprise. This research was a main surprise for me. Let's move on to the second one. Here we go. The search numbers that appears in Russian data were incredibly small. It doesn't matter what kind of source I was having. You see the RUDN library, e-library, Cyberlenica, whatever, and even Russian state library. Only one result according to androgyny meant in the title. This is insane, even for me, the first year PhD student that doesn't know nothing about research, that knows nothing about research that much, comparing to my colleagues or whatever. This is not right, man. This is not right. And if we change now, I would like to say that the conclusion is obvious, that androgyny is a terra incognita in this country. But if we change the country, and at the right you can see the Scopology store and everything that is so we are familiar with, it's not enough even there. And of course, it differs a bit, but the story repeats. And I can say that the country of origin is not the main issue. This shouldn't be that way. We see that, of course, the foreign world has a big amount of works, and I don't think that this is right. So the research was about to finish with a great fiasco conclusion. There is nothing, almost nothing, happens according to androgyny in terms of global world of science. I underline the global world of science. And I do understand that it's a bit of exaggeration, but it still comes to mind. But then the idea appeared, what if we change the search word from androgyny to adult education, and then count the real numbers? And the second slide, please, the next one. So here we go. So adult education is a whole nother story. And there is no point to talk about the numbers because it's uncomparable, because every data base is different and it's almost uncomparable. But trying to compare the reality according to androgyny, the research has shown that the scientific world prefers to expand in terms of adult education and not in androgyny meaning. So as I mentioned before, it's really hard to compare, and the interesting thing for me was to understand, do we have some kind of interplay between Russia and foreign world? Do we somehow is there any kind of communication going on in case of androgyny or adult education? And let me see how much time I have left, because there is no time. I want to be different, because this should be this way exactly. I would like to talk about the comparison of global major works that have been published, because this is a fair thing to do. All right, we have some major work published, they have some major work published, and this is a comparable thing. It's not about all this abstract numbers. Can you go to the next one, please? This is the only thing that really deserves, really digging, because this is the Scopus analytics, as you can see, and this is androgyny results, and this is adult education. So we see that the golden era of andragogy publications were starting from 2010 up to maybe 2015 or 14, and adult education publications, they widely they expand and they continue to grow up to nowadays. So people don't care about andragogy that much. And as long as it's the core of adult education, they still are not aware why we should call it exactly this way and not the adult education, because adult education is a really topical thing nowadays. So let's please move on to the next one. And so here are the results. I've mentioned some of them here already. And the second point, that there are great examples of Russian works to compete with the Western world. I should say about a really outstanding person. His name is Sergei Ivanovich, and he's the stronghold of this theme in this country. He is the one to compete with the Western world, and up until the middle of past decade, he was the only person that was dedicated to andragogy, and he was doing on and on and on, and he was publishing books, and even his wife was publishing. But after 2013 or 14, they stopped, and then we are finally falling behind with the Western world, and we have nothing to compete with them. So let's move on, please. And right now, here are the main conclusions: that adult education is the future of international partnership and social life of the country, and andragogy is the future of pedagogical science. And that's what, right now, what is the useful thing for those who were trying to listen and trying to understand what all those difficult words is about. Right now, you are those exceptions who know what is andragogy, because nobody knows, almost nobody. I was trying to talk with different people, even somehow connected with education, and nobody knew, nobody. So this is it. So I guess this is the main thing to discuss. Maybe we can move on to the next slide just to be officially correct. So here's the references. It's a big list. It's uncheckable, I guess. So I thank you for your attention, and I'm ready to answer some questions if there are any.
Thank you so much for the presentation and just for such kind of speech. Very fluent.
Yes, I was tired of monotone thing.
So please, dear colleagues, dear guests, so do I have some questions here?
Maybe just to clarify some aspects of your presentation, maybe you focus on the term or what? Or just are you studying this sphere? I mean, just education of adults.
I will study the adult education and andragogy in case of my future thesis. But I would like to start. I wanted to understand what is going on in this world of andragogy, and so I made my research based on searching for the title world that. I was looking for any sources that included the word andragogy in a title with any mentioning. So the majority of works were not the works that I should really talk about that much, because sometimes people use the word as a super spicy thing, knowing that nobody knows what it is, and that it's really topical, and this is what should be discussed.
I see. What I wanted to find out is the logic. So, are there any major differences in the pedagogical approach to teaching students, pupils, and as well this?
Yes, exactly. Those are yes.
So I think it's basic psychology. So we have to explain, right? So we have to practice and so on. Are there
I guess the major principles or differences. This is almost quite the same. That andragogy totally understands that it's a whole other audience, the adults and grown-ups. So the practical aspects are different. Grown-ups need to know why they are learning this. You will never teach no one like grown-up without his
strong motivation.
motivation or without his acceptance of the thing or the fact that he is being taught. The second one, adults learn through doing because they have no time to learn. I got to do it right now. Then I guess that adults are problem solvers, and that means that they know this corresponds to the previous points that I've mentioned. And I'm just right now I'm talking point to point of what Michael Knowles used to do in the beginning of the century. He was one of the main pioneer of andragogy. And I guess the last thing is that adults learn best when the subject is of immediate use. And it's also almost the same, but those are all the subject almost quoted novels right now. So it should be really practical, and they should be really faithful in what they do. Like, you will never teach adult without his acceptance.
Okay. Let me ask you also the question, how can you explain actually the rise in the interest of andragogy throughout this period from 2010 up till 2017? How can be explained?
I guess that it's somehow connected with the economical situation, because every time, as I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, when everything is fine according to economic situation in the world or in the country, we start to think about what should we do finally to make our society better. And finally, we start to understand that we have a great stratum of people that are not cared about. And there are a lot of people who would like to travel, to do international communicative acts and whatever they just want to learn. And nobody cares because it's all private. And you got to have a lot of money to find yourself somebody who will teach you. So, and then now, maybe, because you see, when you see that the 2020, this is the pandemic period, and we got the fall down again. Then we see the 2016, the big fall, and I'm not that much good in economic history, but I think that in the middle there was something that was wrong. And adult education is much a wider thing to write about and to discuss. That's why I guess the more people write, the more the number increases. So that's why this is just the way the right diagram is just the way how internet is soaking in more and more information. So that's why there is no point to check it out. Interesting why I have no answer why 2006 and 2007 is so different.
Drastic.
Yes, and then go back. Maybe there was not a single big thing published because, you know, basically there is such a lack of published material that there is one chapter in my survey where I just can compare when was what. Here comes Smith publication. Here comes someone's on the other side of the ocean, and so they just share the works with each other until the middle of the past decades. I don't know why Smith stopped to do this. He was the only messenger. I think that is my emotional conclusion, that when you are the only messenger, you're so deeply motivated that you want to do it on and on because there is nothing going on except you in the world of science. Yes, I do.
Thank you so much for your research and for your presentation. As far as we don't have more questions, right? We're moving forward. Okay. Let me find it. Let me go back and just, oh my gosh. Here we are. Okay. Okay. Okay, so the next person we're having Anastasia Piktina, grammatical and morphological features of English borrowings, assimilation of Russian youth slang. So just you are sent by the presentation. Just a second. How would it be comfortable for you? Just to sit down or just to stand? Sit.
Just sit down.
Okay, so please take a seat. Just like the words open. Okay. Okay. So the screen, we are moving to another presentation. I'm Anastasia Piktina, and also just in the co-authorship with the moderator. And just let's start our slideshow. So is it? Yeah, here we are.
Okay, so good afternoon, dear colleagues. Today, I would like to present the research which reveals grammatical and morphological features of English borrowings assimilation in Russian youth slang. To begin with, due to its constant development, slang presents a difficulty for modern linguistics. The Cambridge Dictionary defines the term as a very informal language, which is rather spoken than written. However, the exact definition of the term still remains highly debatable. The present research focuses on Russian youth slang, which is nowadays apparent in that communication. In fact, most of the borrowings, most of the slang words in modern Russian language are borrowings. Due to its commonness, this phenomenon determines the patterns of modern Russian language, which establishes the relevance of the survey. The study aims to determine the main patterns of English borrowings, grammatical and morphological assimilation into Russian language as a part of the youth slang development. In order to conduct the research, 78 slang words and expressions, together with their 112 derivations, were collected on the basis of internet users' speech. Such resources as vk.com and youtube.com were observed. The research employs the method of statistical analysis to reveal the percentage of different assimilation patterns. Thanks. So in course of the study, the following results were obtained. Firstly, slang borrowings may be divided into two large groups. The first group is words which are formed by simple transliteration from English. These lexical units endure grammatical assimilation, while the second group includes words formed with affixes and difficult morphemes, typical for Russian language. These words endure morphological assimilation. So why does it look like that?
Interesting.
Which
So
is
the
different.
numbers, yeah, it's different. Okay, just continue.
Okay, so lexical units of the first group acquire new grammatical categories while transliteration. So out of 78 units, 70 have distinct grammatical categories of Russian words. In the slide, yes, thanks. You can see the statistics of different grammatical categories acquisition. So 60% of English words and expressions transform into masculine nouns of the second declension type. They are marked as noun M2. 6% become nouns of feminine gender, first declension type. 12% acquire verb grammatical categories of both conjunction types. 13% are borrowed as abbreviations, while only 9% have not acquired distinct grammatical categories. So the first assimilation type might be illustrated by the following transformation example. Please, next slide. The first is transformation into nouns, which includes the following subpatterns: verb to noun transformation. So you can, in the slide, you can see the examples from online written speech. For example, the verb to cringe, transforms into the Russian noun cringe. Noun to noun transformation, for example, the noun to vibe, vibrats, atmosphere, transforms into the noun vibe. And adjective to noun transformation, where the adjective full, for example, transforms into the noun full. So the next assimilation pattern is transformation into the verbs. It is based on adding Russian suffixes and endings to English infinitives. For example, the verb to check transforms into the Russian verb checked, or the variation is checked. As for abbreviation borrowing, it represents transliteration without significant changes in grammatical features or general meaning. For instance, the abbreviations ERL in real life turns into ERL, and POV, point of view, into both. So you can see the examples of its usage. And the final point is borrowing without grammatical categories acquisition. It can be exemplified by such words as real, borrowed from English real, crazy, borrowed from English crazy, and easy, borrowed from easy. Next slide, please. So the borrowings from the first group can also act as word roots for the lexical units from the second group, which endure morphological assimilation. With a variety of word formational patterns, a huge number of new words appear in the Russian language daily and yearly, probably. Please, next slide. So out of 112 derivations under research, verbs constitute 67%, nouns 15%, while adjectives, adverbs, and participles are less frequent. Another point of the research was the communicative reasons of extensive word borrowing. The study has shown that most of the lexical units have their origin in the internet or in the spheres of video games and IT. It also can have its origin in emotional and social aspects of life. The further appeal of international internet communication in modern slang formation may be assumed. So to conclude, the results may be applied to investigation of English language as a source of international word borrowing, as well as to intercultural communication studies in conditions of modern social interaction. Thank you very much for your attention. That must be it. I would be glad now to answer your questions.
Okay, just to make clear, is can you just show once again the slide with crunch and vibes? I'm just all where you just showed how these words are formed. So here on the scheme, you have put that vibes are what? 5 minutes, right? As a verb. Or as a noun?
Vibe is a noun.
As a noun, right? So and crunch is also a noun.
It's a verb, like съеживаться.
Right. Cringe. Sorry. Cringe. Yes. Sorry. Thank you. Just want to make sure. Thank you very much.
So it's somehow changing, changing the transformation, changing the part of speech. Okay, how do you plan to continue this research?
Actually, their morphological aspect was probably not revealed extensively because only several patterns were presented, just like the examples. And probably it should be studied more properly with more attention to exact suffixes probably, or exact word formational models.
So any more questions?
Yes, sorry. I want very much interested in all these warnings, all this stuff. Look, you said that now in Russian we use clinch, for example. Why? But again, I think stylistically, right, it is a kind of words which are not used by everyone. So just, I think just all the youngsters and the youth usually tend to use this word. So can we say that they are just borrowings which are actually assimilated into our language?
I believe they are assimilated to the very narrow sphere. That's why the study is focused on slang. And probably the problem is that as soon as they are assimilated, they become outdated, probably in a year or two. And that was actually the reason why the research was conducted, because I found it quite strange that every year, every probably 5 years, brings some new flow of words, which are not actually registered by the linguists, and probably they need to gain more attention.
Thank you. No.
Thank you so much. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay, so the next presenter. Okay. Vera Sergeyevna, I'm glad just to see you today here online.
Yes,
Here
okay,
online.
thank you.
Let me just, let me show the presentation.
I can show the presentation because I have some correct.
Okay, wonderful. If you just would like to share the screen with us, it would be great.
Так,
Okay.
так, как тут разобраться, как ее?
You should just push to share the screen just in the menu, which is at the top. Камера, микрофон, поделиться. У вас сверху должно быть, да, написано. Камера, микрофон, поделиться.
Okay. Yes.
Right now, just icons. Here we are. Very well done. Okay. Okay. Is it soon? Just is it okay? Try to push the slideshow. Okay.
Okay.
The slideshow. The slideshow. Okay. Thank you. Wonderful.
Okay, let me introduce, please, my research in Russian. Уважаемые коллеги, разрешите представить вашему вниманию тему доклада «Трудности перевода терминологии трансплантологии на русский язык» на материале английского и испанского языков. Целью исследования является выявление и сравнение трудностей перевода терминологии трансплантологии на материале английского и испанского языка. Методология исследования основана на структурно-семантическом анализе и фреймовом моделировании терминологии трансплантологии. Фреймовое моделирование позволяет построить общие и частные фреймы на разных языках. Структурно-семантический анализ включает в себя изучение терминологии трансплантологии в 3 аспектах: синтаксическом, морфологическом и семантическом. В данном докладе мы делаем акцент именно на семантический аспект. Интерес переводчиков и терминологов к проблемам перевода терминологии в сфере отдельной отрасли медицины трансплантологии растет стремительным образом. Наиболее актуальная проблема в работе со специализированным иностранным текстом – это выбор подходящего эквивалента вновь появившемуся понятию. Переводчику для того, чтобы перевести терминологию специальной области знаний, необходимо обращаться к корпусам текста в целью выявления подходящего эквивалента для термина. В нашем лингвистическом исследовании обращение к корпусам текстов позволяет сделать выводы о функционировании терминологии в текстах на английском и испанском языке. Параллельные корпуса текстов рассматриваются нами как инструмент для создания качественного перевода терминологии в специализированных научно-медицинских текстах ввиду отсутствия словарей и глоссариев по проблеме трансплантации органов. Мы используем параллельные корпуса в качестве источника материала исследования. И терминология трансплантологии функционирует в контекстах статей. На английском языке это статья Liver Transplantation from Non-Heart-Beating Donors, Current Status and Future Prospects. И на испанском языке это статья Donación de órganos a corazón parado. Так, ну, к результатам хотелось бы привести примеры сначала из английского языка термина cardiac arrest и cardiopulmonary arrest. Данные термины являются синонимами и наблюдается в контексте, который вы можете видеть на слайде. В словаре представлена дефиниция термина cardiac arrest, sudden and often unexpected stoppage of effective heart action, и cardiopulmonary arrest, an arrest resulting in absence of cardiac and pulmonary activity. Из данных дефиниций мы понимаем, что термин cardiac актуализирует схему сердца, а термин arrest актуализирует схему остановка. Но в термине cardiopulmonary arrest у нас добавляется схема pulmonary, которую актуализирует схема легкие. И термины у нас переводится как остановка сердца, но cardiopulmonary arrest можно еще перевести как остановка сердечно-легочной деятельности. В испанском языке синонимические отношения выступают термины donantes en muerte cerebral и donantes en muerte encefálica. В испанском языке термины muerte cerebral и muerte encefálica являются синонимом, поскольку актуализируют схему интегральную cerebral или cerebral, что означает мозг, мозговой, и используется в сочетании с термином donantes. И переводится это как доноры с констатированной смертью мозга. Антонимия выражена однокоренными терминами и комплементарной антонимией. Антонимия английского и испанского языка выражается отрицательными префиксами «не». В английском языке антонимия термина NHBD, Non-Heart-Beating Donor, выражена посредством двух прилагательных controlled и uncontrolled. Термины находятся в семантических отношениях, семантических отношениях антонимии, поскольку выражают противоположное значение посредством добавления отрицательной приставки un. В испанском языке однокоренная антонимия терминов donantes controlados и no controlados тоже представлена отрицательным префиксом no. Но в испанском языке по сравнению с английским языком однокоренная антонимия не используется в сочетании с аббревиатурой донор с небьющимся сердцем. И переводятся данные термины как контролируемые доноры или неконтролируемые доноры. Так. И в заключение хотелось бы сказать, что семантический анализ терминологии трансплантологии позволил выявить основные трудности, возникающие при поиске эквивалентов на русский язык на материале испанского и английского языков. В английском и испанских языках выявлена терминология, вступающая в синонимические, антонимические отношения. В английском языке выявлены синонимы cardiac arrest, cardiopulmonary arrest. В испанском языке muerte encefálica, muerte cerebral и donantes en muerte cerebral, donantes en muerte encefálica. Термин cardiopulmonary arrest в английском языке образуется при помощи словосложения. А в испанском языке с однокоренной антонимией терминов контролядос, но контролядос не используется аббревиатура по сравнению с английским языком, где используется аббревиатура NHBD в сочетании с прилагательными controlled и uncontrolled. В испанском языке с антонимией терминов контролядос, но контролядос используется термин donante. That's all.
Thank you so much. It's a wonderful presentation with very specified, actually, topic, right? Do we have some questions here, dear colleagues? So the topic was quite difficult, especially just in connection with medical terms. Just a second.
It's medical terms.
Так, сейчас, секундочку, я вас пытаюсь перенести, и вы не переноситесь у меня. Oh, here we are. Вера Сергеевна, спасибо вам огромное за участие. Если будут еще вопросы, мы, соответственно, можем в чате, да, наверное, написать. Также ждем вашу публикацию с нетерпением, да, чтобы более глубоко изучить нюансы, да, аспекты, которые вы там описали. Потому что действительно очень специфическая, да, также сфера. Но у нас сегодня вы единственный человек, который выступает именно с медицинской, да, лексикой, скажем так, рассмотрением медицинской сферы. Спасибо вам огромное. Thank you so much. And just the next presenter, please, Christina, you follow, right? Sure. Just intercultural interpretation of the culturally and nationally marked lexical units of Bulgakov's notebook.